Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. Naruto hit his back painfully against something that felt suspiciously like a wide tree. His whole body ached. His vision was swimming. It seemed like he had been thrown into the wall during the explosion in Orochimaru's lab. He still remembered very well Sakura's scream as she was thrown to the opposite side. Naruto shook his head and tried to blink. Then something hit him in the face. A book, it seemed. "Uzumaki Naruto, you're a complete idiot!" Someone's displeased voice said weightily, apparently belonging to a girl of 10 or 12 years old. "What did I do?" Naruto didn't understand, rubbing the bruised bridge of his nose and trying to focus his gaze on the girl who had somehow ended up at Orochimaru's lab and was suddenly calling him an idiot and throwing something. However, his vision was so blurry that he couldn't even make out the outlines of the area, let alone the girl who was moving from place to place. Apparently, she was so irritated that she was pacing back and forth, trying to control her emotions. "Oh, what have you done?" The girl was indignant. "I don't want to know you," she concluded, and apparently left, because not only did they not throw anything else at him, but they didn't say anything either. And the bright spot stopped flickering before his eyes. Naruto slid down the tree and sat down on the ground, trying to come to his senses more or less and waiting for his vision to return to normal. Okay, now he'll come to his senses a little and figure out exactly what's going on. It looks like he was just thrown out of Orochimaru's lab. But wait, then why was some girl suddenly attacking him? Something was wrong. And if they had broken through the wall, his body would have clearly hurt more. Even despite his increased regeneration, he would hardly have had time to quickly recover from that. His body, of course, felt somehow strange, but his arms and legs moved and nothing hurt except his head. His voice sounded somehow unusual when he addressed that girl. Somehow completely childish. Naruto leaned his back against the tree and closed his eyes so as not to be distracted by the world around him, which he still could not see properly. His thoughts were running in different directions, jumping from one thing to another and refusing to latch on to anything that seemed wrong. Intending to force himself to think more carefully about what was happening, Naruto relaxed and lost consciousness. Judging by his sensations, he woke up about 3 hours later, but his vision was normal. His vision was no longer tripling, and his body did not seem completely alien. Happy with this circumstance, Naruto stretched until his bones crunched and quickly rose to his feet. There was some kind of book lying nearby. He picked it up and barely held back an exclamation. Someone threw at him the well-known novel by Jiraiya called Ichi. Naruto coughed into his fist, genuinely puzzled as to where a child could get such a book, and put it in the deepest inner pocket of the bright orange tracksuit he was wearing. He finally looked around and still let out a surprised grunt. He wasn't at Orochimaru's lab. This was Konoha. Had they dragged him here? And just dumped him at the academy gates next to the swings? And why hadn't they brought him to his apartment? Well, he'd still have a talk with Orochimaru and his assistants about this. It would have been better if he'd been lying near the lab. It clearly wouldn't have been so shameful. The ANBU captain had passed out next to the Shinobi Academy, almost on the road, and children had been walking past him the whole time. Naturally, no one had woken him up. Just great. Naruto shook his head again and still, albeit belatedly, looked at himself for damage. He didn't seem to feel any, but it was worth checking just in case. He immediately mentally howled, finally realizing these were completely different clothes in which he came to Orochimaru, and the body was small. Well, that is, the body of an ordinary child, but he was already almost 20 years old. "I'll kill you, Orochimaru," Naruto promised himself mentally. Now it was clear why there was some girl nearby who threw a book at him. But wait. Something didn't add up again. Even if he looked like a child, then how could some girl from the academy even recognize him? He graduated much earlier. There was no way she should remember what he looked like as a child. No, of course, he hadn't changed much in appearance. But maybe she confused him with someone else? In the end, Naruto himself didn't remember doing anything that could anger some child. After the Fourth World War, almost everyone treated him as a hero, and when he looked into the academy, The children were so delighted that it was hard to imagine that someone would call him names and throw books at him. But it was definitely worth visiting Orochimaru and telling him everything. What kind of antics are these? How will he go for a walk with Hinata now? They are supposed to have a date this weekend, by the way. Let him bring his normal body back as he wants. Because his thoughts are constantly running in different directions, his mind can't come to terms with the fact that something is wrong with his body. The sun was slowly heading towards the horizon, and there were at least 3 hours left until sunset. He would still have time to go to Orochimaru and calmly return to the village. Someone's tenacious hand caught him by the collar of his Olympic jacket right at the exit from Konoha. Well, where are you going at this hour of the night? A vaguely familiar voice asked ingratiatingly. Naruto quickly turned around. Ebisu had caught him by the clothes and was now looking through his glasses with undisguised malice. What business is it of yours? Naruto asked sullenly, not liking such looks at all. He had seen them too often as a child to tolerate them now, when he could very well give back. I do what I want. All sorts of people will still tell him that he can't leave Konoha at night. Children are not allowed to go outside the village gates without an escort, Ebisu said, clearly enjoying what was happening. And then Naruto couldn't take it anymore. Not only had Orochimaru done some strange thing to his body, but now this one. What can I say? Naruto hadn't had a good relationship with Ebisu since he met Konohamaru, and nothing had changed since then. Have you forgotten who I am, Ebisu? Naruto asked gloomily. I'm actually the son of the 4th Hokage, Ebisu said in a casual tone, as if he heard this question from him every day, and, having prevented Naruto from trying to break free, literally dragged him along. Naruto resisted, kicked, clung to the pillars, but they still continued to tow him somewhere, and all he could do was mentally curse Orochimaru for the fact that all his physical training had suddenly disappeared somewhere, and he was not able to cope with a weakling like Ebisu. The villagers also looked at him, some with silent reproach, some with sympathy, some with affection, and some with obvious mockery. Why did they suddenly have such looks? Did they recognize him and now they are wondering what he will do next, finding himself in the body of a child? Or are they amused that, even kicking, he is not able to get out of someone else's grip? In the end, Naruto decided not to waste his strength and simply went limp in someone else's arms, not even intending to move his legs if Ebisu wanted to, then let him drag. Naruto, what's going on? Kurama's worried voice sounded in his head. They're dragging me somewhere, Naruto noted in a completely indifferent tone. Why don't you resist? I tried, then decided that since it was useless, I'll just be ballast. Orochimaru did something to us. Do you remember how something exploded on him? Let's say so. The fox agreed with him. And what happened next, do you remember? Naruto persisted. No. I woke up at the Shinobi Academy in different clothes and the body of a child. That bastard will pay for this trick. I was just going to deal with him when Ebisu caught me right at the gates. Naruto poured out his soul with sincere indignation. This one has also gone completely crazy. Me, the ANBU captain, dragged me somewhere by the scruff of the neck. Now he was very reminiscent of his 11-year-old self, constantly shouting that he would become Hokage and proving that he already had to be reckoned with. This time, however, the indignation was completely justified. In 2 years as an ANBU, Naruto had become accustomed to the corresponding attitude, and the fact that he, knowing who he was treated like a naughty little child, really hurt him. Oh! Kurama suddenly drawled, worried and mocking. Has someone gone too far? Do you remember if we forgot to fulfill some request of the 5th Hokage? Maybe they're just dragging us to her. For reprisal, he suggested. Exactly. We forgot to bring her sake this morning, and they were celebrating something yesterday. That's the answer, Kurama concluded. How are we going to justify ourselves? Naruto was worried about his future fate. Pretend to be a blissful lover and ramble on about Hinata. Maybe he'll take pity on you. We've done this before. Naruto sighed regretfully. Any other options? Not yet. Naruto muttered something incoherent and decided to pay attention to reality. What he saw did not make him too happy. Judging by the surrounding buildings, he had been dragged past the Hokage's residence a long time ago. The sun had not yet set below the horizon, which meant that Tsunade had hardly left her post. Then why had they passed by? Okay, let's wait for the right moment, kick him somewhere and get out of here, Naruto said decisively. Otherwise he's dragging us somewhere we shouldn't be. What, don't you want to know where? Oh, screw it. Orochimaru will go somewhere during this time, and then you'll have to look for him all over the land of fire. At that moment, Ebisu finally stopped and rang the doorbell of a house. Naruto quickly wriggled out of his hands and kicked him in the knee with all his might. He was about to run away when suddenly a dark voice caught up with him. Naruto. Naruto froze in surprise and turned around slowly. He had heard his father's voice only a few times, but there really was a dissatisfied Namikaze Minato standing on the threshold of the house. Naruto even tried to rub his eyes. What if he had imagined it? Then he made a tiger seal and muttered in a trembling voice. Kai. Minato hadn't gone anywhere, he just seemed even more dissatisfied than before. Huh? Naruto couldn't get anything else out of himself. Henge? Who was making fun of him like that anyway? What is it this time? Minato asked Ebisu. He tried to leave Konoha, he reported importantly. I caught him at the very last moment, when he was already trying to climb over the fence. Liar! I wanted to go out through the main gate. Naruto's indignation even brought his normal voice back. Minato's eyebrow twitched in irritation, after which he took a deep breath and thanked Ebisu. All for the well-being of Konoha. He smiled and bowed. A suck-up. Naruto muttered to his back and couldn't help but stick his tongue out. He would deal with him yet. And with those who had staged this whole show. Especially with the one who had planned all this, and with the one who was now pretending to be his father. Namikaze Minato was dead, and the fact that he was thus involuntarily reminded of his entry into the limited Tsukuyomi did not add any honor to these unknown lovers of practical jokes. Naruto wanted to leave the memory of his meeting with his parents in the other world undefiled by anyone, so he was very angry at this attempt to take advantage of his unenviable position. Thanks, but no thanks. At some moments in the other world it was too good to believe again in what was happening now, and then again, albeit briefly, involuntarily regret that he was deprived of the opportunity to grow up in a loving family. Hey you, Naruto turned to Minato, noticeably emboldened. Stop pretending to be my father. Dispel your henge. It's not funny. Naruto, what's wrong? Minato was genuinely surprised, and then put on as stern a look as possible, apparently deciding that they were simply trying to confuse him. No one is pretending to be me. More importantly, what do you need outside of Konoha anyway? Naruto, alert! Kurama screamed in his mind. The chakra really does belong to Minato. What? Naruto exclaimed in shock, losing all his fighting spirit at once. Apparently, the emotions he was experiencing were reflected too well on his face, and Minato began to look much more worried than displeased. Why didn't I notice this before? Tell him something. Naruto? Is everything okay? Where have you been all day again? You're all dirty, Minato continued asking, not waiting for an answer from his son. He didn't look too surprised by what was happening, which led to certain thoughts that this scene was repeating itself not for the first time. The situation, however, was not very conducive to long and productive thoughts. Besides, Naruto was so confused that he couldn't even come up with a decent answer. What can I say? Why is my father here? Why is he alive? Have they sent us somewhere again? Answer his question quickly. We'll sort it out later. Naruto looked around in panic, trying not to turn his head, and gave the name of what his gaze first caught. Tree. A tree? Minato didn't understand and frowned even more. Go on. You fell from it. Come on, think. Kurama screamed in his subconscious. Or at least repeat after me. Fell from a tree. Head first. Come on. I fell out of a tree. Head first. Naruto confirmed his father's fears. It seemed like it was high up. He finished uncertainly. Have you been training? Naruto nodded, deciding that that would be a pretty good explanation. Well, really? Minato sighed with relief for some reason. How many fingers do you see? He asked quickly. 3. Naruto answered automatically. Does your head hurt? I don't think so. Or a little, Naruto shrugged. Okay, go inside. We'll talk about trying to leave Konoha later. Kushina just cooked dinner. You won't go to the hospital for a checkup anyway. Mom? Naruto howled, having successfully heard everything that came after the word Kushina. My mom is here too. Where from? Maybe we just didn't wake up. Maybe we were smashed into the wall by an explosion, and all my brains were blown out. And now we're unconscious in the Konoha hospital, and we're imagining it all. That's why. Kai. Didn't work. Yeah, and his chakra was a hallucination for me too. No, something's wrong here. Kurama disagreed with him, while Naruto obediently followed his father into the kitchen, mechanically washed his hands and sat down at the table. But what if it is the brain after all? There would have to be something knocked out of you to bring you to such a state. Thank you. Naruto pouted, offended. Minato meanwhile was retelling to his wife everything he heard from Ebisu and Naruto on the street. Am I not right? Okay, stop being hysterical. Listen carefully and try to answer in such a way that you will not be suspected of anything. You never know where we may end up. It's like last time, when Obito threw you and Sakura into an illusion where everything in the world was upside down. Let's behave in such a way that we will not be limited in our actions. They might lock you up somewhere, deciding that you are socially dangerous. You never know how events will turn out here. Be careful. Otherwise I don't know without you. Naruto snapped weakly. Well, Orochimaru, does your head hurt? Do you feel sick? Kushina asked solicitously, placing dinner plates on the table, of which there were 4 for some reason. It was clear that she was not too satisfied with Minato's message that everything is fine, and decided to personally verify. Not really, I don't feel sick. Naruto shrugged, about to ask why there was another plate here, but Minato got ahead of him. Why did you skip classes at the academy again? Minato asked in a tone as if Naruto skipped classes every day. I was training, Naruto said uncertainly. Then why was the Hokage monument defaced with paint again? Are you just making up excuses again? Minato didn't buy the excuse, having received another confirmation that everything was indeed fine and Naruto was once again trying to pretend to be somewhat disoriented after another injury, and thus avoid punishment. Well, first I painted, and then I trained. Naruto corrected himself. Am I a hardened hooligan here too? While my parents are still alive? He howled mentally. How does having living parents stop you from being a hooligan? Kurama chuckled mockingly. Got it. Tomorrow you'll go and wash it all off yourself, and now, since you fell from the tree head first, eat, go to the bathroom and go to bed. And just try to sneak out of the house at night. I'll put you under house arrest for a week and hang fuin seals on the window and door, just to be sure. Or I'll make you clean the archives under the supervision of someone from the interrogation and torture department, and not your usual overseer. Got me? Naruto, stunned by such a rebuke, quickly nodded and, wishing him a pleasant appetite, began to eat quickly in order to get away from here, to be alone and think carefully. Minato, apparently, was quite satisfied with his son's nod instead of a full answer, because when he began to eat, he looked much more friendly. There was a clatter of feet from the hallway. Apparently someone had run down the stairs, after which a smiling child flew into the kitchen. Naruto choked. Mom, I cleaned everything up. A boy of about 8 or 9 years old reported proudly. He was blond with blue eyes and somewhat resembled Naruto, only without the stripes on his cheeks, and looked much neater. His hair was combed, his clothes were not wrinkled or dirty in any way. And his eyes were bigger. Well done, Kazuo. Kushina praised him, then turned to Naruto and frowned. But you still haven't cleaned up the mess in your room. So that everything will sparkle tomorrow. Naruto, barely having time to clear his throat, nodded again and began to literally swallow the food. Eat properly. Kushina immediately chided him. Don't rush. Naruto obediently began to chew the food, not paying much attention to its taste and not taking his attentive gaze off the boy. I have a younger brother. I have a younger brother. I have. Quiet. Kurama shushed him. But this is the younger brother. The fox sighed resignedly. Stop looking at him like that. Naruto, are you okay? Kazuo asked worriedly. He was clearly not used to being stared at so closely. He fell from a tree head first. He tried to dispel me like a genjutsu, and then claimed that someone was just pretending to be me with the help of henge. Minato hastened to reassure his youngest son. Don't worry, he'll be fine in the morning. Yeah, Kazuo nodded understandingly. Naruto doesn't like hospitals anyway. He always just goes to bed when he falls from somewhere and that's it. He doesn't even always let his mother look at his bruises. He just doesn't know that she comes to check on him every night. Oh, he smiled disarmingly. Kushina shook her head, not too surprised that her youngest son had let something slip. You won't be upset with your mother, right? She loves you so much. Of course not, I'm a real Uzumaki. Naruto said proudly, glad not only that they apparently weren't forcing him to go to the hospital here, but that they were also secretly checking him at night. Even though he knew this world was alien to him, Naruto couldn't help but be happy to hear that. Kushina couldn't help but chuckle. Minato looked up at the ceiling. Thank you for the food. Oh, you fool. Kurama howled. What if you're Namikaze, huh? No, they don't correct me, so I am still an Uzumaki. The realization of this was calming. He still had his usual name. He wouldn't have to watch himself when meeting someone. After everything that had happened, Naruto didn't even remember some girl who, throwing a book at him, called him by his full name. And if it weren't for him, he would have simply been caught incompetently. Why can't I know my mother's last name and call myself by it? Naruto didn't understand, leaving the table and heading to the sink to put his empty plate there. Should he wash it or not? Naruto froze in indecision, waiting for at least some kind of hint. What if he didn't know and gave his name? How do you know how everything is arranged here? The worried Kurama did not calm down. Get to the bathroom and sleep, Uzumaki. Kushina urged him with a smile. I'll check in half an hour. And if I don't find you in bed, Minato's punishment will seem like a fairy tale to you. See? Naruto remarked happily, not too bothered by the promised punishment. I'm still an Uzumaki. After which he quickly took a shower, dumped all the dirty clothes into the laundry basket, obediently slipped under the blanket, and intending to pretend to be asleep, waiting for Kushina to arrive, fell asleep for real. The next day, from early morning until midday, Naruto was very busy, wiping off the Hokage monument, which seemed to be his own. He even regretted a little that he was not the one who painted the Hokage's stone faces. But he and Kurama had a lot of time to think about this situation. Working actively with a rag, finishing wiping off the monument, which depicted only 4 Hokage, Naruto tried to gather all the information they had together. Since he had not managed to think it all over in the evening, he was too tired and disoriented, so he fell asleep as soon as he felt relatively safe. So we're back in another world, and I'm 11 years old here. Graduating from the academy is almost a year away. There was no attack by the Ninetales at the moment of my birth because my mother, the Jinchuriki, is alive. I have a younger brother, Kazuo. My father is the 4th Hokage. The whereabouts of Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru are still unknown. Did I miss anything? And also, apparently, you are a notorious hooligan here too, but I can't understand why you haven't been re-educated. Kushina can be convincing when she wants to. It seems that everyone has long since come to terms with your behavior and given up, and the residents of Konoha sincerely sympathize with Minato, because he is the Hokage, and his son is doing God knows what. And we also need to somehow get back. It seems the only way out is to find Orochimaru. After all, something exploded in his body, so let him sort it out. By the way, we were there with him and Sakura. Maybe she was thrown here too. At least someone familiar. If Orochimaru is still out of reach, then we can easily find Sakura somewhere in Konoha today, or we'll meet her at the academy tomorrow. Your parents will be happy as I understand it. You didn't visit her very often here. Kurama agreed. And I'm not really planning on visiting it. I didn't have enough strength to get rid of Ebisu yesterday. We'll train. And we can drop by the academy twice. Well, 3 times a week to get certified. I'm well-versed now. I know almost everything they teach there. And you remember something too, so we'll pass the tests somehow. You want me to solve tests with you? Kurama even choked on such impudence. Are you against it or something? You yourself said that sometimes you get bored just sitting around, so you'll help me. It's a pity that we can only start looking for Orochimaru in a year, when he's released from the academy. And not right away. And I'll have to sit and keep a low profile all this time. What kind of life is this? Kurama was indignant. Unless Orochimaru himself comes to us and returns everything to how it was. Why not show off? Naruto was worried, who had become too accustomed to relying on the fox's help over the past few years, and thanks to this, he always had an immeasurable amount of chakra. He couldn't even imagine that he would have to refuse his friend's help and do everything on his own again. After all, in his world, everyone had long been accustomed to the fact that Naruto could use the Bijuu's cloak at any time. Because your mother has the Kyuubi of this world inside her. And that means that another one inside you will raise too many questions from those around you. Kurama eagerly began to explain to him. And how Minato and Kushina will react, it's scary to even imagine. I can't show myself. At all. So you can only rely on your chakra from now on. He finished, visibly saddened. Oh my! Naruto cursed, throwing the rag away in anger. I'm done cleaning the monument. Let's go find Sakura. Don't forget to take the bucket with you, otherwise you'll have to go back. Kurama reminded. Naruto reluctantly picked up the rag, poured the entire contents of the bucket somewhere down, stuffed the rag into it, and began to descend from the Hokage monument. As far as he could see from its height, Konoha had not changed much, except that the Uchiha clan quarter was not deserted. But Naruto, too worried about his situation, did not pay any attention to this detail. Coming down from the monument, Naruto came face to face with Ebisu, who was completely wet and therefore looked completely pitiful in the eyes of Naruto, who was not too happy with his appearance and yesterday's behavior. However, quickly realizing why Ebisu was all wet, Naruto quickly said something suspiciously reminiscent of, "I didn't mean to," and ran away in an unknown direction, grabbing the bucket so that it did not make unnecessary noise. Ebisu could only curse through his teeth, but the pest had disappeared without a trace. "It's a sunny and windless day, so it'll dry out quickly," Naruto noted, not regretting his actions at all. Kurama snorted something incomprehensible, but clearly approving. Trying to run as far as possible, Naruto did not pay much attention to those around him, catching sight of landmarks, buildings, and trying to get to Sakura's house by roundabout ways, so he was not very surprised when he crashed into someone, and, not being too concerned about this incident, and not even looking at the unfortunate person, continued on his way. But it was not so. He was caught again by the collar of his unbuttoned tracksuit, and Naruto was forced to slow down. "It wasn't nice to pour water from the height of the Hokage monument," he was suddenly reproached. The voice did not belong to Ebisu, and Naruto, very unhappy with the fact that he was again being prevented from reaching the right place, hastily turned around as soon as he felt the grip of the person who stopped him weaken. However, he was in for a big surprise. Someone else's remark immediately flew out of his head. "Why are you here?" Naruto exclaimed in shock, almost with holy horror, dropping the bucket from his hands, which rolled away with a clang. Uchiha Itachi stood in front of him, wearing the usual shinobi training clothes with a headband with the village's protector on his head. He looked more alive than anyone else, and in his left hand he held a small bag with the logo of a candy store. "You're dead." Naruto even backed away. Itachi frowned. The son of the fourth Hokage, of course, had met him in all sorts of ways, but he didn't usually behave like this. "And he also said that you have brains," Kurama howled with clearly discernible notes of panic in his voice. "Where are they?" "Dead?" Itachi asked politely. "Were they really playing a prank on him?" "You were killed by Sasuke when you were a missing nin," Naruto muttered, still stunned by such a meeting, not paying attention to Kurama's panicked cry. Naruto had quite a decent list from his conversations with Itachi, and just thinking about it could give him nightmares. Either a raven crawled into his mouth, or parts of other people crawled out of his body in a genjutsu. And he was here, in Konoha, safe and sound. "You're in another world, idiot!" Kurama literally growled. "Come on, make excuses and run!" "Nuke nin?" Itachi asked, much more ingratiatingly than last time. Naruto finally realized what he had done. Would he, as a child, now react so stupidly to everything? Or was this effect temporary? "I think I calmed down a bit while Anbu was there," Naruto said distantly, continuing to back away. Itachi still kept his intense gaze on him. "You're imagining things," Kurama snorted. "Say something already!" I was joking, Naruto said quickly and leaned his back against the wall. Not thinking of anything better, he began to slowly move towards the exit of the alley, not leaving the wall. Could you have chosen a normal excuse? And what is it? Are you going far? Itachi asked with genuine interest, appearing right in front of Naruto's nose. He even screamed, realizing that he wouldn't be able to escape. He wouldn't even have anywhere to retreat. Well done, congratulations, now we'll definitely end up behind bars. Kurama was meanwhile busy predicting their immediate future. Home. Naruto squeaked, somehow too strangled. Great idea, we'll talk there, they unexpectedly supported him. And the next second they persistently grabbed him by the elbow and led him through the village. Judging by the reaction of those around him, it was clearly not the first time they led the local Naruto like this. His real childhood immediately came to mind, in which he was often dragged to the academy tied up across Konoha. The fourth Hokage's house greeted them with emptiness. Kushina had gone somewhere with Kazuo, and Minato, having checked his son's health early in the morning and taken him to the Hokage monument, went to perform his direct duties. Itachi, without further ado, unlocked the front door with the keys. Naruto still managed to ask himself, where did he get the keys to the Hokage's house? And went up the stairs to Naruto's room. Naruto even felt a little uncomfortable because there was simply a delightful mess there, which he still had to clean up today, even though he had not created it personally. For some reason, next to Itachi, he wanted the room to sparkle with simply perfect cleanliness. Naruto was generally not inclined to keep his room in perfect order, but the feeling did not even think of disappearing. Kurama was silently speaking the whole way home, only once making the excuse that he was thinking, and shamelessly left Naruto to stew in his own juices, telling him not to do anything stupid and calmly walk home, because otherwise they'll drag you to prison, and while they're just offering to talk, you have to talk. He was clearly worried about Naruto's impulsiveness, who could decide that in this situation, running away wasn't such a bad option. Itachi slowly put the bag of sweets on the table and turned to face Naruto, who was standing in the middle of the room and shifting from foot to foot. Who are you? Itachi asked without further ado. He needed to find out what the problem was. Uzumaki Naruto, he responded without hesitation. Where are you from? From Konoha. Sorry, Naruto, but you'll have to be patient. Kurama's worried voice sounded in his head. And the next second, apparently deciding that he wouldn't achieve anything with a simple conversation anyway, and that he needed to immediately take extreme measures, Itachi activated the Sharingan. He suddenly fell into Naruto's inner world and, appearing there, looked very discouraged. It seemed that he himself had not expected anything like this. The consciousness of the one who called himself Uzumaki Naruto was guarded by a not very friendly-looking little animal. Although the one who called himself Uzumaki Naruto looked exactly the same in his consciousness as in reality, this was of little comfort. Kurama was also shocked. He expected some kind of genjutsu, and not such a turn of events. But he quickly pulled himself together and lay down on the floor with incredible speed, covered his eyes with his paws and threw all 9 tails on top. Naruto quickly stepped aside so that Itachi could not look at both him and Kurama at the same time. Damn Uchihas! That Sharingan again! What the hell is going on? He hissed from under his tails. Turn away and don't look in my direction. I can't stand you for this. Don't look at me, I can feel the gaze of your eyes. Turn away. I don't want to kill while under control. Itachi swallowed loudly and, feeling a drop of sweat roll down his temple, turned his gaze to Naruto, trying to make this movement as slowly as possible. He didn't really want to provoke the guard he had suddenly discovered in his mind, who lived there without any restraints, no cage, not even some kind of shabby leash. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox. The boy smiled nervously, spreading his arms out to the sides and barely suppressing the desire to hide behind Kurama. And my mother, Uzumaki Kushina, was a Jinchuriki. But I was thrown here from another world, so she's still a Jinchuriki, sort of. Something exploded in Orochimaru's lab, and here I am. Last night I woke up at the Shinobi Academy. Barely realizing what was going on, Naruto fell silent. Itachi didn't take his wary, expectant gaze off him, apparently hastily trying to figure out what to do with all this. It's unlikely that the fourth Hokage will be very happy when he finds out that something incomprehensible happened to his son, and the one who is supposed to be watching him has no idea what the matter is. You go ahead and talk, Kurama supported Naruto, meanwhile slowly turning to Itachi, who slightly flinched from the sounds of his voice, with the back of his body. Since you were already caught ineptly, then lay out the whole problem at once. Maybe there will be fewer consequences and they will take pity on you. But it would be better if you returned to reality, huh? I am nervous about the presence of the Sharingan in close proximity. Don't worry, he's my friend, Naruto said, nodding towards Kurama, wanting to calm everyone down at once. In his understanding, the characteristic friend was enough to relax. Itachi, however, didn't even change his expression. He looked just as wary. Together, we won the Fourth Shinobi World War. By the way, I was forced to become an ANBU captain. After it I spent exactly 2 years in the post, came to pick up some samples for Granny, that is, the fifth Hokage, Tsunade Senju from Orochimaru, and then something exploded in his lab. You're repeating yourself, Naruto. My nerves might just give out. Kurama intervened. Get out of here. Naruto, having swallowed the remark that after everything that happened he had a moral trauma and his nerves were apparently also in tatters, suggested with a guilty look. Come on, really, let us out, okay? Otherwise he might not be able to take it anymore and try to slap you. We haven't had much luck with your clan. One of yours, Obito, once made him destroy half of Konoha, then Sasuke got on his nerves for a long time, and then you and your Genjutsu have met us more than once. Your Mangekyo Sharingan has caused so many problems. Itachi couldn't help but turn his gaze towards the nine-tailed demon fox again, and he, unable to resist, swung his tail with all his might, one of which whistled right next to Itachi's shoulder. I asked you not to look. Kurama was indignant. Itachi, having assessed the situation, closed his eyes and after a few moments disappeared from Naruto's inner world. Kurama breathed a sigh of relief. Well, finally! Oh, he immediately relaxed. Itachi hastened to calm Naruto, not wanting him to get nervous once again. You never know how it might come back to haunt him later. Mangekyo's Sharingan? He finally spoke up. Yeah, Sasuke had one too, Naruto confirmed carelessly. That's why Kurama wasn't too happy to see you inside. You know, we don't really want to be controlled and follow someone else's orders without the ability to refuse. He smiled awkwardly, ruffling the hair on the back of his head. The shock had finally subsided and Itachi no longer seemed terribly dangerous. Besides, it was necessary to describe the situation somehow, and there was no one to expect help from. It was worth at least trying to tell everything. What if Itachi could help with something? So, I'm a little lost here. You see, in my world, Mom and Dad are dead, and the fox is resealed in me. Of course, I was already immersed in a limited Tsukuyomi once, trying to take away the Kyuubi, so at least I didn't fall apart when I met my parents, but I haven't had time to understand what's going on here yet, and I didn't expect to see you, to put it mildly. Naruto looked a little guilty while saying this. Of course, I know from Sasuke's words that you are really good, but the impressions from meetings with you were very different. But since you are here, the entire Uchiha clan should be safe and sound, which means you did not wipe them all out on Danzo's orders, so you are not a missing nin and not a member of Akatsuki. Therefore Sasuke does not want to take revenge on you, which means Orochimaru should not be hunting him, and may not show up here at all, and I need him to go back. Something exploded in him. In short, I don't understand. I was almost 20 years old, I am now in the body of an 11-year-old child. I do not have even half of my past skills. Because the me here, apparently, was the same hopeless hooligan and did not learn anything at all in childhood, I could not even escape from Ebisu. Naruto looked very unhappy with the current situation. Although it's probably for the best, otherwise I simply wouldn't have found my home, he added after a few seconds of silence. And then suddenly he began asking questions. By the way, was your clan planning on organizing a rebellion? Is Hyuga Hisashi alive or dead? What has anyone heard about the Akatsuki organization in your world? You didn't ask the most important thing. Kurama was indignant. What will happen to us now? I'll ask now. And yes, what will happen to us now? Don't tell Danzo, please. After you cut out the clan, he transplanted many Sharingans to himself. Sasuke barely finished him off later. So he can try to do something really bad to me and I won't tolerate it, and due to the lack of skills of the required level, I will fight with the help of the QB's powers. But I don't know if this body can withstand such stress. Besides, all of Konoha will definitely be scared. And Mom especially, she has the QB of this world. Naruto looked pleadingly at Itachi, who continued to remain silent and, apparently, was still trying to somehow figure out the amount of incomprehensible information that fell on his head. And Dad doesn't need to, he will worry, he finished very quietly. I think you dumped too much on him at once. Anyone would get hung up on that, Kurama said, finally removing his paws from his eyes. The silence dragged on. Naruto kept his expectant gaze on Itachi. Itachi looked at him and didn't move. His gaze was heavy. Kurama irritably beat his tails on the floor, splashing water in different directions. So, will you help me? Naruto asked hopefully, unable to wait any longer for the verdict of his future fate. Sasuke said that everything you did it to save him. So, you were definitely a great older brother when he was little. Always wanted a brother, and here I have one. Okay, Itachi finally said, looking like he was making the biggest mistake of his life. I'll help. But you'll be under my supervision. Naruto immediately beamed and finally relaxed, suppressing with all his might the cry of, "Hooray!" bursting from within. You're celebrating too early. Kurama snorted, as expected. You haven't discussed the terms yet. Oh, come on, they won't hand us over to anyone. Just a couple of conditions. Naruto waved him off. Constant, Itachi added, noticing how his interlocutor blossomed. This made him even more wary than before. Who knows what he's going to do now? Will it not be difficult for you? Naruto asked, continuing to dance with happiness inside, and unable to stay in one place, began to walk in circles around the room. Not at all. Nothing will change, you were already under my almost constant supervision. Why is that? Naruto froze in surprise. I'm an ANBU from the Hokage's personal guard, and your father prefers to know what you're up to in order to prevent something that could turn into a real disaster. Oh. So it was you he was talking about yesterday when he mentioned some familiar overseer. Naruto exclaimed, remembering his father's reprimand about his inappropriate behavior yesterday. Itachi nodded. Then why didn't he know where I spent the whole day yesterday? I was on a mission. And am I very different from my local self in my behavior? Not good. Do you know me well? Yes. And you? Yes. Why? Naruto didn't let up, starting to pace around the room again. Realizing that, in fact, since Itachi was his permanent supervisor, this was quite logical, he decided to explain. Well, since you were watching me here, then you shouldn't have shown up. Sometimes I had to, Itachi said gloomily, recalling the time Naruto had fallen off the Hokage monument and had to be caught. And then we got along. He added. There was a faint note of doom in his voice, suggesting that the Naruto of this world had simply not let go of Itachi after his first appearance, and had purposefully searched for him on the streets of Konoha. Cool! Naruto exclaimed, clearly deciding that since Itachi got along with the Naruto who lived here before, he would be able to communicate normally with him. Itachi looked much less tense than before, apparently he was starting to get used to it. And by the way, he still hasn't answered your questions. Kurama meanwhile decided to remind Naruto that at least some information about what was happening still needed to be obtained from Itachi, before he decided to go somewhere, deciding that he had enough communication for today. The Uchiha Rebellion, Hyuga Hizashi Akatsuki. He listed. Yeah, right. Sorry, I was too happy. Naruto apologized. So, was your clan trying to start a rebellion here or not? Naruto asked sharply, stopping in the middle of the room again. Kurama prepared to listen attentively. Namikaze Minato's policy was much more favorable than the third's, so it was decided to wait, and then there was no longer any need for it. Itachi responded reluctantly. Excellent. It's a relief. Naruto was sincerely happy. And Hyuga Hizashi? Dead. Well, Naruto suddenly lost heart. I'll have to straighten out Niji's brains again, and I've gotten so used to him being normal. He even saved my and Hinata's lives during the war, at the cost of his own, he sighed, and then perked up. Well, never mind. If I don't come back by that time, I'll do everything to keep Niji alive. Akatsuki? They exist, came the short answer. And I'll set Nagato's mind straight again, Naruto said, as if it was self-evident. Who is Nagato? Itachi immediately frowned. Ah, their leader. Naruto waved him off, as if he was saying something everyone should know. But he actually turned out to be good, just like you. He just lost his way, and died too. And I'll try to save him, since I have such a chance. Is this an obsession for you? What idea? Naruto didn't understand. Save everyone. Itachi even sighed somewhat resignedly, wondering what this, save everyone, could lead them to. How can you leave someone in trouble if you can do something? Naruto was genuinely surprised. Of course, I will help. By the way, why does the local me have the surname Uzumaki, if Dad is alive? Will you tell me in detail so that I understand? Or will I just keep asking and asking? I need to understand why. And there is no one else to ask. It will look very strange. He always felt like he was loved less. At first he started to misbehave over little things to get attention, like many kids do. When he was about 5, he got too upset that Minato spent a lot of time with Kazuo. And then one day Minato punished him too harshly for something that Kazuo had only scolded him for, because he was younger and didn't understand what he was doing, and Naruto started telling everyone that he was an Uzumaki, because being a Namikaze was terrible, because his father didn't need him anyway, because he only had eyes for Kazuo. Minato never understood why Naruto got that into his head. Because he seemed to be trying to spend time with both of them, Itachi sighed. It was unclear, either he was a little upset that he was being forced to explain something, or by the behavior of the local Naruto. The younger ones always need more attention, because they are not able to take care of themselves, and the older ones do not always understand this. Itachi knew exactly what he was talking about. Naruto was 6, Kazuo was 3, apparently, he was very offended by his father. And in the end, Naruto demanded that he be written down in the documents as Uzumaki, because only his mother loved him. Naruto snapped at all of Minato's attempts to explain, so after a while he simply resigned himself, and no measures of influence helped. Besides, he did not have time for family squabbles then, and then it was too late. Naruto could not be convinced. And he and Kushina-san initially joked about the fact that the first child would bear the surname Namikaze, and the second Uzumaki, because Kushina refused to change it. They laughed that it turned out the other way around, and rewrote the surname so that Naruto would at least calm down a little. What he did not arrange, trying to achieve this. Wow! Naruto exclaimed. Well, wow! I didn't know you could talk so much. And I'm cool here. Well, of course, I don't understand how you can be offended by the fact that not only you but also your brother are loved. But to achieve something you want at such an age, I only dreamed of such a thing. And how old was I when they assigned you to watch me? 4. And not to follow, but to observe. Wow! Again, short, concise, to the point. It seems you'll have to say every time that you won't shut up until you know everything, so it's better to say all the known information at once. Otherwise, he'll continue to answer mostly in monosyllabic sentences. And you'll have to spend hours pulling information out of him. Kurama noted. But he agreed to help us. Naruto reassured him. Yes. And he will constantly keep an eye on us, which means he will go with us to Orochimaru when we get ready. Well, he's cool. Maybe, on the contrary, he'll help you leave more unnoticed than you and I usually can. Itachi was still standing by the table, not moving even once. Naruto looked around the room, catching sight of a chair that had been pushed to the window for some reason and was covered with a pile of things. And it dawned on him. And you're still standing there because there's nowhere to sit? Naruto drawled understandingly, changing the trajectory of his movement and heading towards the chair. Without further explanation, he simply threw all the things on the floor and dragged it to the table, where it was supposed to stand. Here. Sit down, Naruto smiled broadly, jumping up onto the bed with his feet and sitting on it in the lotus position. His gaze caught on the bag with the logo of a candy store. Does Sasuke like sweets here or something? He asked, puzzled. No, Itachi responded, following Naruto's gaze, without sitting down on the offered chair. Then it turns out you love? Naruto suggested. Yes. But it turns out that I bought it for you. I always bring Naruto something when I'm gone for a long time. He must have been more cooperative then, Kurama remarked, unable to hold back a chuckle. Wow. Naruto was genuinely happy. Ero-san only bought me some goodies while he was training me as a kid. Let's eat them together, shall we? His answer was met with a meaningful silence. I think you've completely confused him, Kurama remarked through his laughter. Maybe he shocked me? Naruto suggested in turn. But with what? A stream of endless information. The morning was chilly. There wasn't a single glimmer of blue to be seen in the sky. It was all covered with gray clouds, and the cool breeze that blew in every now and then, throwing dust and small twigs and leaves into your eyes, was downright irritating. Naruto, with his hands deep in his pockets, trudged to the Shinobi Academy. His mood had been bad since he woke up. It all started yesterday. First, he had to unsuccessfully search for a bucket that he had lost due to an unexpected meeting with Itachi. Then he spent almost half the night cleaning up the mess in his room, which he hadn't managed to sort out before his mother arrived, and she hadn't even thought of sparing him and letting him get a good night's sleep. As a result, Naruto was completely exhausted, slept for only 3 hours, didn't have time to have breakfast because he didn't want to wake up. There was only one plus to cleaning. He now knew exactly what he had and where it was. Although the clean room seemed completely alien to him at first, in the mess it was somehow easier to think that this was his usual place of residence. It's okay, I'll get some sleep at the academy, Naruto decided, kicking small stones out of the way and turning in the right direction. Well, chuckled the disgustingly cheerful Kurama, who, unlike his Jinchuriki, had slept peacefully all night. If they let you, the noise from just one Inazuki will be so loud that it will catch you too. But I'm not going to sleep during breaks, I'm going to sleep right during classes, Naruto muttered, irritated. It's one thing to train all night, and quite another to clean up. It would be better if he suffered from chakra exhaustion, honestly. While thinking about this, Naruto himself did not notice how he found himself at the gates of the Shinobi Academy, and there, it must be admitted, not the most warm welcome awaited him. Damn you, Naruto! Sakura, who, unlike Naruto, had a habit of always coming to class early and was almost never late, exclaimed as she flew out to meet him. Apparently, she just decided to linger outside and meet him. As soon as she was next to him, Sakura punched him in the jaw with all her might. Naruto was sincerely glad that she didn't have any future strength here either, otherwise it would have been much more painful. Because of you, all sorts of incomprehensible things always happen to us. So you're here too, huh, Sakura? Naruto was delighted, even stopping rubbing his aching cheek. That's good. That's no reason to be happy. She disagreed with him, and grabbing his wrist, dragged him after her into the academy. Classes start in 3 minutes. We'll talk after them, understand? And just try to sneak away somewhere. I'll find you, and you'll regret it. Naruto nodded desperately in response, trying to show with his whole appearance that he was not going to disappear somewhere after classes. He himself had wanted to talk, by the way, since yesterday. He just hadn't managed to get out of the house. Sakura realized that she should let go of Naruto's hand only when she got to the classroom, so they entered the classroom separately. Naruto's appearance was met with a chorus of, "Wow!" Apparently, he really was here very rarely. Naruto was even surprised how he managed to skip so much while his parents were alive. He calmly walked to the last desk, which was the only one that was empty, and plopped down behind it, spreading out on the tabletop. During the roll call, he forced himself to just raise his hand over the table. Yumino Irika sighed somewhat resignedly, but did not reprimand him. Naruto still had time to ask himself why when a form with questions fell on the table in front of him. They had a test today. The worst scenario could not be imagined. Not only did he not get enough sleep, but he also ended up in a knowledge test. Oh shit! Naruto thought indignantly. However, it was unusual for him to be despondent. You had to come to the academy on the day of the test. Kurama! Let's remember history. You said you were well-versed now, Kurama remarked sarcastically. You met the village's founders in person, so use your experience. Hey! Naruto tried to take offense at him. That doesn't mean I remember every little thing. Well, what if? Naruto lifted the desktop, and an unpleasant surprise awaited him. There was nothing inside. No notebook, no textbook, no pencil, not even a pen, In a word, it was absolutely empty. Well, yeah? And what are you going to write with? Kurama asked, as expected. Sakura. Sakura. Ignoring the displeased look of Iruka-sensei and some of his classmates, who had perked up because of his loud whisper, Naruto called across the entire classroom. Sakura, lend me a pencil. Or a pen. Something that writes. Sakura turned around, frowned, and threw a pencil at him. It hit Naruto right between the eyes and flew under the table. The students silently followed the flying pencil with their eyes and again immersed themselves in their tests, not wanting to attract unnecessary attention to themselves. Pulling the pencil out from under the table, Naruto, rubbing his bruised forehead, sat down. He sincerely hoped that there would be no bruise. It would be too shameful to flaunt the bruise that the pencil had left on him. Ahem ahem. Iruka's characteristic cough was heard behind Naruto. I understand. Naruto raised his hands in front of himself, showing off a completely clean pencil. There's nothing on it. It's just that I really don't have anything to write with. The desk was empty. I wonder who's to blame for your empty desk, Uzumaki Naruto? Iruka sighed, crossing his arms over his chest. Write the test. He frowned, noticing that Naruto was about to answer him. Naruto practically buried his nose in the questions. To be honest, they really weren't the easiest. After looking through the questions, he realized that he only remembered about half of them. With difficulty suppressing the desire to gnaw on Sakura's pencil, Naruto began to fill in the questions he knew the answers to. 10 minutes passed. Naruto filled in a third of the questions he knew, and Sakura, meanwhile, stretched until her bones crunched and, apparently, began to finish writing the last 2 voluminous questions. Naruto frowned with displeasure and decided to speed up. 10 minutes later, a satisfied Sakura passed the test, and he wrote everything he could remember himself. Kurama, well, you've lived so long, well, you know exactly what date the Konoha police was officially formed. In approximately this spirit, Naruto learned about 10 more questions from the fox. Another 10 remained empty, but the time allotted for the test was coming to an end. There was no way to get the remaining answers from Naruto. Iruka was already collecting the tests. Well, at least it won't be 0. Naruto noted with satisfaction, handing over his answer sheet. I wonder if you've ever gotten anything higher than a 10 on a test here? Kurama asked. What if you haven't? Well, everyone will think that I suddenly decided to come to my senses. We will gradually improve. And then, apparently, he was here so rarely that they really could have left him for another extra year, and we need to get into the team with Sasuke and Sakura. Otherwise, we won't save anyone. And we won't be able to set Niji's mind straight during the exam. Naruto lay down on the desk with the obvious intention of, if not taking a nap, then at least resting a little. Don't you think it would look suspicious? Kurama frowned, more concerned than anyone else about their secrecy. We need to come up with something to justify your sharply increased grades, if they were really that low. Let's hide behind Sakura. We'll say that she's been training us for the last week, if anything. I'll say that I made a bet with Itachi that I'll write all the tests from now on with scores higher than 50. Naruto suggested the most effective plan, in his opinion, closing his eyes and completely falling into the subconscious. Why would Itachi argue with you? Kurama wondered. He said that we kind of got along. Well, let's say that I tried to beg him for some technique that he used somewhere, and he gave me a condition, to start studying better. And then I went to Sakura. She's one of the best students. Naruto tried to explain his plan better, sitting down right on the floor and crossing his legs. Your explanations are flimsy. Kurama sighed, turning his face towards him. Do you think there's a fool who'll believe that? You said it yourself once. It's all about how to tell it. Itachi is such a strong shinobi, and the me here could be inspired by this and want to do something too. He said it himself yesterday that the me here was always trying to get recognition and attention from my father, and then he got offended. Why couldn't I get tired of the old ways? No, I won't stop being a hooligan, of course, but I will justify myself and definitely improve my skills. Indeed, when such a role model is around 24/7. And he doesn't look like a father. Why not, actually? Okay, if anything, tell everyone that Itachi set you such a condition, refusing to teach you any technique. But it's worth warning him too. Kurama finally agreed, thinking about something to himself. In our situation, the most stupid explanation might work. unlike a complicated one. It will definitely arouse suspicion. And here everything is so simple that it's hard to believe. Well, go look at what's going on outside. Naruto returned to reality for a few seconds, looking around the classroom with a sleepy gaze. The break was already over, since everyone was in their seats. Iruka was drawing some kind of scheme on the board, apparently a tactical one. Nothing interesting, Naruto said, turning back. Why should we warn Itachi? He didn't understand. He'll confirm everything anyway, he promised to help us. And what if Minato asks him when you'll explain everything to him? What if he suspects something is wrong? You can, for example, name different techniques or time. If you're going to lie, you need to think everything through thoroughly, otherwise you'll screw up somewhere and that's it. Goodbye, hello, cold prison cell. That's why I always say what I think. Naruto frowned. Lying is too difficult. I almost never managed to lie on purpose. Sasuke once decided to pretend and almost exposed himself to Sakura because of his stomach ache. He barely escaped. It's good that she doesn't know that it was me then. But now we need to think everything through. So you'll have to try. Besides, in the future, if they believe us now, we might not have to lie much. Kurama tried to calm him down. I hope so, because somehow it's much more difficult to mislead people in everyday life than in battle. Naruto sighed. That's for sure. You managed to get caught by Itachi on the very first day. Kurama irritably waved his tail, still unhappy that the owner of the Sharingan had paid a visit to his and Naruto's cozy inner world. We're lucky he didn't knock us out right away and drag us to the elders, Danzo, or your father. That's true. Naruto agreed with him. By the way, maybe we should observe our surroundings, Kurama suggested. We need to check if the guys here are different from themselves in our world or not. I don't want to. There's tactics going on right now. I'd rather sit here. Naruto protested. I'll watch them during the break. Kurama sighed in irritation. It was unlikely that he would be able to convince Naruto, so he decided to punish him in the only way available. He turned to the wall and pretended to be asleep. Naruto returned to reality only when the students began to liven up. He felt someone's not very friendly aura behind him and, emerging from consciousness, barely managed to dodge Sakura's fist. Why are you sleeping during classes? She asked indignantly. What difference does it make? Naruto pouted. Sakura frowned even more. I didn't sleep all night, my mom made me clean my room. He quickly explained, fearing another slap. Now's our chance. Kurama perked up. We need to prepare them for what you allegedly did to Sakura. And why are you scolding me anyway? Just because I asked you to help me with my classes doesn't mean I can't sleep at the academy. He continued, and after making sure that no one around him except Sakura could see his face, he looked at her with a pleading gaze and said almost with his lips alone, play along. Well, how is it? He immediately asked Kurama. That'll do. He approved. The main thing is, don't say anything unnecessary. Sakura even choked on air from such a statement. The hubbub that reigned in the classroom until this moment suddenly came to naught. Everyone who had not gone with Kiba into the corridor decided to listen. Why did you suddenly decide to start studying? Ino asked warily from the other end of the class, not taking her eyes off her friend the whole time. And why should Sakura help you? Well, she's the best student in the class. Naruto responded without thinking. Sakura chuckled and, crossing her arms over her chest, threw a look full of superiority in Ino's direction. Ino immediately frowned with displeasure. Oh, so you're the best, huh? She was indignant, getting up from her seat and in a matter of seconds appearing next to Naruto and rewarding him with a poke in the shoulder. I'll show you the best. I'll study with you. Ino suddenly declared, offended. Sakura and I have the same grades. So together we'll make an excellent student out of you. Oh, I warned you. Kurama couldn't help but say. I did warn you. Oh no. Sakura was already indignant. I did it myself. And then she added more calmly. We don't need an extra straight-A student. The minimum is enough for him. You won't find anyone smarter than Sasuke-kun in our class anyway. Sakura tried to make a dreamy expression on her face, apparently remembering how she behaved at the academy. Ino's eyes widened in surprise. Naruto immediately turned towards Sasuke, who had been in the classroom all this time. He visibly tensed up and tried to pretend that he didn't notice those around him at all. He was doing much worse than the shamelessly dozing Shikamaru, who was sitting in front of him. Sasuke involuntarily gave himself away by flinching as soon as his name was mentioned. Besides, Sakura spoke in such an enthusiastic tone that there was reason to flinch. Naruto would have been scared too. "What's wrong with you, Sakura? Are you out of your mind from talking to that idiot?" Ino whispered in a tone as if Sakura had said something forbidden. Naruto, glad that the topic of conversation had changed, listened in, trying not to lose sight of Sasuke and at the same time keeping an eye on the girls, which forced him to turn his head back and forth. "Why is that?" Sakura didn't understand. "Sasuke-kun is so cool." Sasuke shrugged irritably. Apparently, he didn't really like hearing such admiration addressed to him. In the first grades of the academy, the girls had pestered him so much that he couldn't think of anything better to do than remind them that he was, in fact, the second son of the clan head and that they would most likely find him a bride from the clan, like his brother, so it was better not to pester him, it was useless anyway. And to be more quiet about his admiration. Or at least not in such incoherent sentences. Or better yet, somewhere else it was hard to concentrate when the female half of the class was constantly looking at you, sighing stupidly, or the male half was boring his back with displeasure, and some of the especially brainless ones even tried to fight him because the girls weren't paying attention to them. Sasuke, of course, thanks to his clan training, easily put the presumptuous ones in their place, but it was too stressful and got boring after literally a month. And then he couldn't stand it any longer and hid behind the clan. Of course, it wasn't the most dignified act, but he was inferior in endurance to Itachi, who didn't give a damn about all this at the academy. And he didn't really want to endure something like that for several years. And thanks to his words, the girls noticeably became sad and quiet, trying not to mention in his presence how cool he was, so suddenly hearing something like that from Sakura was very strange, especially considering that on Saturday at the academy she froze right in front of him, first muttering his name, and then something incoherent, but suspiciously reminiscent of cute. He then thought that he simply misheard and simply walked past. Sakura always seemed to try to be quiet around him, and then suddenly she declared it to the whole class. Sasuke silently rose from his seat and, straightening his shoulders, trying to look as unperturbed as possible, left the classroom. Naruto couldn't help but burst out laughing. "What are you talking about? He's an Uchiha, keep your voice down. Be as enthusiastic as you want, but it's better to keep quiet. He's cute, of course, but have you forgotten how he didn't like it in the first grade at the academy?" Ino whispered worriedly. "And then, you have nothing to hope for, mixed marriages are rare there, and besides, he's the son of the head. He hasn't even looked at any of us the whole time." Sakura barely suppressed the derisive snort that was threatening to escape. Instead, she tried to look as confused and guilty as possible. "Sorry, I forgot myself," she confessed. "It was Naruto who threw me off track," she finished vindicatively. Naruto nearly fell off his seat. "What does this have to do with me?" he said indignantly. "You're a bad influence on her." Ino came to a disappointing conclusion. "Sakura, he's had enough of your help. By the way, how long have you been helping him?" "A week," Sakura blurted out at random. "So that's why you didn't go to the pastry shop with me on Wednesday?" Ino frowned. "Exactly," confirmed Sakura, sincerely hoping that the deception would not be revealed. "So, Naruto, either ask me better or learn yourself," she added and went down with Ino. "Okay then." Naruto stuck his tongue out at their backs. During one of the breaks, they managed to arrange a meeting without anyone noticing. "What kind of tricks were those?" Sakura hissed after the academy classes were over and everyone had gone off to their own business. They were hiding from the people around them in the thick bushes near the academy's training grounds, which, fortunately, were empty. "What do you mean, pull up on subjects?" "Kurama and I assumed that my grades weren't that great, so I had to justify myself somehow," Naruto said barely audibly. "So he was transferred with you," Sakura concluded. She began, but then she shut her mouth and turned very pale, looking behind him. Naruto turned around. Uchiha Itachi stood behind him, gloomy as a cloud. "Don't you want to explain anything to me?" he asked sullenly. "Oh, that's Sakura, She was transported along with me. She was with Orochimaru then too, Naruto said without a shadow of doubt or guilt on his face. I just didn't know if she would really be here, so I didn't say anything about it yesterday. Naruto, Sakura began threateningly. What are you? He knows everything. Naruto quickly crawled away from her. It happened by accident. But he promised me, and now, it turns out, to help us. By the way, he turned to Itachi again. Did I study badly here? It's terrible, he responded, sighing resignedly. What have you already managed to do? Of course, I could see it from the roof, but I couldn't hear it. I wrote a history test, and also said that Sakura helped me improve. She confirmed it. When I show my dad the results, I'll say that you made me study better, okay? Me? Naruto even thought that Itachi was somewhat taken aback by such a statement. Your impudence stunned him. Kurama snorted. Will you tell him that I begged you for some technique, and you set a condition that I write all the tests for no less than 50 points? Naruto looked at Itachi pleadingly. Otherwise, I was afraid that they might hold me for another year. I had to wriggle out. Sakura didn't take her wary and surprised gaze off them. Then you are guaranteed to be at the academy at least 3 days a week, Itachi stated, clearly realizing that it was unlikely that this Naruto was going to visit it often. Deal. Naruto rejoiced. I wanted to walk anyway. Then I asked you to teach me? Kagebunshin. Itachi looked up at the sky, then looked at Sakura, who shrugged uncomfortably. What, you also can't accept the fact that I'm alive? He asked. Sakura, after thinking about it, nodded affirmatively. And Sasuke-kun isn't obsessed with revenge. It's so unusual. Do you know how you got here? Itachi changed the conversation to a more neutral direction, not wanting to hear again the stories about how he had slaughtered the entire clan and pushed his brother onto the slippery path of an avenger. It's all Orochimaru's fault, Sakura responded with conviction. It's definitely his fault. Naruto and I didn't do anything for this. We were fine there. And you don't know how to get back either? Maybe Orochimaru knows. Sakura shrugged. Since Naruto and I are here, he should have been sent here too. We just need to find him. Now that's a problem. Naruto sighed. He's a missing nin here too, right? Yes, Itachi confirmed. And we know where only 2 of his many shelters can be located. Sakura noted sadly. We'll be looking for a long time. How did you find these shelters? Itachi couldn't help himself. No one knows where they are, and then suddenly they say something like that. Thanks to Sasori of the Red Sand from Akatsuki. Naruto shrugged. Itachi's eye twitched slightly. We were saving Gaara, Naruto explained. Itachi, unfortunately, was even more confused about the events of the alien world and clearly regretted not asking not to tell anything yesterday. It was too late now. But he still had a ghost of a hope that he would not get completely confused by this information. By the way, Naruto, are your parents still alive here? Sakura began hesitantly, remembering that Naruto had mentioned cleaning the rooms because of his mother back in the academy, but clearly doubting whether it was worth talking about it, noticing that Itachi wasn't going to say anything yet. Alive, Naruto nodded. And I also have a younger brother here. We look alike, he bragged. Did you take it okay? She decided to ask, just in case. Easier than limited Tsukuyumi. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful to Obito for that stunt. Otherwise, I'd be sitting somewhere in the interrogation and torture department right now because of my reaction. Naruto shrugged, deciding not to tell Sakura about how he tried to dispel his father with Kai. But I have the opportunity to feel what it's like to live with a family again. Sakura sighed in an incomprehensible way. Okay, since we still don't know what to do, she noted. Then I'm going home. Naruto, I advise you to do the same. Tomorrow we'll resume our classes, so that we can communicate calmly if necessary. At the same time, we'll discuss everything we saw. We just need to figure out where we'll do it. I still need to train. Naruto shook his head. I couldn't fight off Ebisu here. This needs to be fixed. He rose from the ground. Okay, then see you tomorrow. Itachi, having made sure that they had really separated, sent a shadow clone after Sakura. You never know what could happen. It was worth checking what she would do. If there was nothing illegal, then he wouldn't have to watch her too closely, so as not to accidentally attract unwanted attention, because if he was caught, it would be hard to explain why a little girl was being followed. Naruto alone was enough for him, and he definitely needed to keep an eye on him. Fortunately, at least there was no need to explain anything about the increased attention to him. The problems kept growing and growing. It was scary to even think about what would happen next. For some reason, Itachi thought that all this was just the beginning. Naruto stayed at the academy training field until almost dark, vigorously throwing kunai, doing push-ups and running. He was very glad that there was no one else at the training ground, so he could load himself up as much as he wanted without causing unnecessary questions, as he understood the local Naruto, although he trained, but, apparently, not too willingly. He went home all rumpled, tired, and most importantly terribly hungry, already anticipating a delicious dinner and a soft bed. The only light in the house was in the kitchen. It seemed like everyone was there. Naruto calmly walked into the house, took off his shoes and headed to the kitchen. This day was definitely not going to end well. The words of greeting stuck in his throat. "We're in trouble, Kurama!" was the only thing Naruto could think about at the moment. Not only the entire family was gathered at the table. Jiraiya was also sitting at it. Naruto himself didn't notice how, after saying hello and muttering something about a shower in his defense, he rushed upstairs and locked himself in the bathroom, loudly slamming the door. Naruto couldn't say for sure how well Jiraiya could sense someone else's chakra without the help of the hermit mode, but the obsessive idea of playing it safe was firmly lodged in his head. Could Jiraiya notice that his godson had another chakra of a completely unambiguous nature, just by looking? His parents didn't notice anything, but one of the Sannin was a completely different matter. Minato usually comes home tired, and Kurama tries not to even move around in front of him and Kushina just in case, and he speaks with apprehension, not wanting to accidentally show himself. However, no one around him really noticed any changes. But Jiraiya, he really could sense something when Naruto got scared when he saw him in the kitchen. Kurama suddenly woke up at the wrong time, and Jiraiya's gaze was directed at Naruto. What are the chances that he'll see something and decide that he imagined it? Naruto asked dejectedly as he pulled off his dirty clothes. Not much chance, Kurama said, no less dejectedly, clearly depressed that their attempts to hide could be ruined by the untimely arrival of the Sannin. I didn't even have time to be happy that he was alive. He immediately ran away. Naruto sighed sadly, getting into the shower. We don't feel like being happy now, Kurama said irritably. Yeah, Naruto agreed with him weakly. Maybe we should tell our parents, he suggested, turning on the water to its strongest pressure. And what will we answer to the completely logical question of where their real son went? Will you start talking nonsense again about Orochimaru being to blame? They'll be happy. Kurama frowned, once again estimating the not-so-bright prospects awaiting them. Let's let them get used to you first, huh? Otherwise, coupled with the fact that Orochimaru is to blame, the words, I am your son from another world, sound very unconvincing. My parents accepted me in limited Tsukuyomi. Naruto pouted. That means they'll accept me here too. Yes, but you spent time with them there. And here you will seem like a stranger who took the place of their son. And if you say something about Orochimaru, they will decide that you were either driven crazy or replaced. Here, he has not yet restored his reputation. Kurama disagreed with him. Okay, Jiraiya is much more important now. What are we going to do? If he asks, we'll tell him everything? Naruto suggested, somewhat sheepishly, forced to accept the weight of his comrade's arguments, because they sounded too convincing to be disputed. And Itachi is still here. Do you want to drag him to prison with you in case of failure? In gratitude for the promised help? Kurama sighed. Okay, I won't mention Itachi. And Sakura too, Naruto concluded after thinking for a moment. If anything happens, she'll be able to get us out of there. Or at least Itachi will try to persuade us. Well, she's unlikely to pull you out herself. If something happens, she won't have enough strength. And why would Itachi risk so much for you? He hardly wants to become a missing nin here, especially after what you and Sakura said about Sasuke, who is obsessed with revenge, and the destroyed clan. Moreover, he doesn't care about you, you're a complete stranger. But he said we got along well, Naruto protested. He got along with you from this world, but he hardly knows you personally. Kurama corrected him. Then we'll just force Jiraiya to listen to us. Naruto came to the conclusion, and finally regaining his spirit, he finished. It's good that I know how. Don't tell me you're going to use it, Kurama said, barely holding back from slapping his paw across his face, sometimes simply feeling ashamed. But this is my favorite jutsu, and it will definitely work on him. Naruto turned off the water, quickly dried himself with a towel, wrapped himself in it, and tiptoed to his room. His parents' voices could still be heard from the kitchen, but neither Jiraiya's voice nor laughter could be heard. Before finding out if he had left or was still there, Naruto decided that he should first get dressed. You never know, he might have to run away. The room was empty and dark. Naruto turned on the light with some trepidation and rushed to the closet, pulled out the pajamas that were closest to him, and pulled them on almost at the speed of light. Are you planning on running away in your pajamas if something happens? Kurama asked sarcastically. Naruto was about to say something in his defense, when suddenly from behind, from the side of the bed, came an ingratiating. Well. Naruto jumped up and turned around with a jerk. It looked, to put it mildly, a little strange. You scared me, Ero-sanin. Naruto was indignant. Why sneak up on me like that? Naruto! Kurama couldn't help but cry out in panic. There you go again. Jiraiya smiled good-naturedly, getting up from the bed where he had been sitting cross-legged and heading towards Naruto. I asked you not to call me that within your house. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when Jiraiya ruffled his hair. Now tell me who you are, where my godson is, and why there is a nine-tailed inside you, Jiraiya suddenly asked darkly. This tone of his voice contrasted too much with the previous one. Naruto yelped and almost sank to the floor. Play on pity, Kurama advised, trying to restrain himself from starting to pace back and forth. In this world, Mom has it too, Naruto said absent-mindedly, feverishly trying to figure out what he could say and how to. Play on pity. He had never done anything like that before. He demanded, yes, he hammered into someone's head the obvious, in his opinion, truth, yes, but he had never tried to play on pity in his life. Jiraiya continued to stare at him, without removing his hand from his head. But she doesn't know that in another world, she and Dad are dead, and I am the Jinchuriki. Kyuubi attacked Konoha on my birthday. They sacrificed themselves to protect the village. What other world? Jiraiya frowned. He didn't like what Naruto said too much. And you promised to listen to me and not interrupt? Naruto immediately hurried to clarify. Jiraiya continued to frown, clearly doubting whether it was worth giving such a promise to someone he did not know at all, considering that this someone ended up in his godson's place, looked exactly like his godson, and behaved like his godson, but at the same time a different person. Ero-sanin? Naruto asked uncertainly, noticing that the silence was beginning to drag on. It was unlikely that he would be able to chat up Jiraiya the same way as Itachi. Once again hearing the forbidden form of address within the walls of the house, Jiraiya even shuddered. His gaze, however, was still filled with doubts. In the end, after being silent for a few more minutes, he nevertheless nodded. Excellent! Naruto almost jumped up on the spot. He was stopped by Jiraiya's hand that was still on his head, from under which he immediately hurried to wriggle away and immediately began to walk back and forth around the room. In this world, thanks to this action, during conversations he could at least not shout at the top of his voice, but speak in a much quieter voice than he could if he did not splash out energy somewhere else. He had a lot of emotions, and they were all bursting to get out, so just walking back and forth, trying to explain something, was the ideal option. Considering that he needed to control himself, he still did not know exactly what Naruto from this world never did, and what he did often. Listen, Ero-sanin, you better sit down, Naruto noted, and taking a deep breath, began to babble. By the end of Naruto's story, which took him about half an hour, Jiraiya was already sitting on his bed, resting his cheek on his hand, trying to understand what he had just heard. Judging by the expression on his face, he was taking in everything Naruto had said much easier than Itachi. Naruto fell silent, trying to catch his breath as quickly as possible and waiting for someone else's reaction. He sat down right on the floor in the middle of the room. Luckily, this time it was clean, and there was somewhere to sit. It was worth giving Jiraiya time to think. Besides, they still had it. The voices of his parents and younger brother could still be heard from the kitchen. He listened to me. Naruto rejoiced inwardly. I didn't even have to use jutsu. I hope he doesn't take you for a psycho. Kurama remarked nervously, every now and then twitching one of his tails in a strange way. Come on, don't worry, I've been called all sorts of things before. Naruto tried to calm him down. You think he was moved by your tearful mention of eating ice cream together during training? Kurama asked sarcastically, but that didn't make his voice any less tense, his tails now twitching in turns. Certainly, traveling to another world was much more nerve-wracking for him than for Naruto. Naruto puffed out his cheeks in resentment, and was about to get indignant about the tearful one. But suddenly his face changed and almost deafened Kurama with his joyful cry. I know how to convince him that we are telling the truth. I'm not lying, Naruto said, ruffling his already dry hair and smiling disarmingly. Jiraiya looked at him, showing with his whole appearance that he was waiting for him to continue. You want to convince him with this phrase? Kurama couldn't help but say. I said that you gave me the gift of summoning. So, when I learned to use chakra normally, I almost always summoned only the Toad Boss. Gamabunta! And 2 elders taught me Senchakra. Fukasaku and Shima. But mainly Fukasaku. Oh, that disgusting food of theirs. If I were lying to you, I wouldn't be able to name their names, because only those who know the summoning and have learned Senchakra know them. You told me so yourself. My godson really hasn't encountered those whose names you mentioned, so I can rule out the possibility of his substitution with a preliminary interrogation or ordinary insanity because of some scroll. Jiraiya agreed with him. You said that I was killed by my student, who became the head of Akatsuki after the death of his comrade? Yeah, Nagato. Naruto confirmed calmly, nodding. It seems like Konan was helping him. He added, catching himself. The head of Akatsuki, according to my information, calls himself Pain. Jiraiya, apparently, was still trying to catch him out on something. So that's an alias? Naruto waved it off. Everyone who calls themselves Pain is something like Nagato's puppets. They're corpses he uses with chakra conduits. How do you know this? I told you that we repelled the Akatsuki attack on Konoha when they came for me because I'm a Jinchuriki. And I said that he was there and I fought him. I couldn't have gotten the name wrong, it was Nagato. Naruto frowned and finished weightily, as it seemed to him, with words that did not encourage further questioning. I remember everyone who died before my eyes. Jiraiya sighed in resignation. What should I do with you? He asked, sounding a little too tired. Of course, help! Naruto exclaimed as if it was something self-evident. If it is possible to go back, of course I will leave so that the me here can return to my place, even though I don't know what happened to him. Suddenly we just switched places. Although, honestly, I really don't want to leave here. Everything I dreamed of is here and those who died in my world are still alive. He suddenly switched to a more serious tone again. This, of course, is not very right. I would like to prevent the deaths of those who did not deserve it, to save those who did not have time to save in my world. Someone who might know something about what is happening is Orochimaru from my world, but I don't know if he came to this world with me. After all, he is still a missing nin here, so it's hard to find him, especially when you are just a student of the academy. I see. Jiraiya concluded and suddenly smiled a little too slyly. By the way, maybe your observer would like to come by. It's probably inconvenient for him to listen to us from under the window. Itachi didn't go home? Naruto immediately perked up. The window slowly opened and Itachi entered the room, successfully pretending that he had nothing to do with it, and was just passing by chance and, in general, was simply fulfilling his duties, assigned to him personally by the 4th Hokage. Even his eyes did not betray his wariness. He froze like a shadow next to the window, without uttering a sound. He already knew everything, right? Jiraiya asked shrewdly. Naruto, hesitating whether to confirm someone else's guess, looked at Itachi with a doubtful look. Are you sure you served in ANBU? Itachi asked with a subtle, but still somewhat noticeable displeasure. You have no secrecy. I've never been a spy, I always go straight ahead. Naruto shrugged. And I'm very strong. Who else knows about this? Jiraiya asked. It was he who exposed me. Naruto said, puffing out his cheeks in an offended manner and pointing his finger at Itachi. He intercepted me in the gateway and started scolding me for accidentally pouring a bucket of dirty water on Ebisu's head, and in my world he's dead, and the meetings weren't pleasant, and I got caught scared. Just like me, Jiraiya noted. I've only been here for 3 days, by the way. Naruto was immediately indignant. Do you think it's so easy to realize that you've ended up in another world where everything is different, and to become a child again, Ero-sanin? He asked offendedly. By the way, my date with Hinata fell through because of this. Hyuga Hinata? Jiraiya asked, somewhat surprised. Yes. Naruto confirmed hotly. By the way, I was really looking forward to this. And then this. Do I have to start all over again if I suddenly stay here? Naruto asked, almost in holy horror, realizing. Damn it. So you're more afraid of the prospect of losing your relationship with the girl, rather than having to train again? Jiraiya asked slyly, tilting his head to the side and cupping his chin with his fingers. Yes, training is nothing compared to girls. Sakura alone has turned me down so many times. Well done, you've confused him, Kurama praised. Among the two voices in the kitchen, Kushina's voice was somehow not heard. You are definitely my student, Jiraiya concluded. Itachi continued to watch silently, still standing next to the window and clearly trying not just to blend into the interior, but to pretend to be one of the pieces of furniture, so that they would definitely not remember him again. Well, of course, I spent 2 years with you outside of Konoha, after the Chunin exam. Let's meet tomorrow in a more comfortable setting and decide what to do about this. Maybe at the hot springs tonight, Jiraiya suggested. Naruto immediately narrowed his eyes, sensing where the wind was blowing from with such a proposal, but Jiraiya's expression didn't even change. Jiraiya threw a warning glance at Itachi. And you come too, since you already know everything, it's better for the 3 of us to think together. We'll sit and think, then we'll discuss it somewhere secluded. And at that moment the door to the room opened and for some reason an enraged Kushina looked in. She was holding some book in her hands. Naruto looked closely and with horror recognized Jiraiya's book, which some girl had thrown at him, left in his things in the bathroom. Frankly, that evening he had enough information that had fallen on his head without the book, so he simply did not remember about it. It seemed that something was going to happen now. Naruto! Kushina began without any preamble, holding the book in front of her at arm's length so that it could be seen better. Where did you get this book? Why was it in your things? So, I decided to put my things away to wash them tomorrow, and then I found this. And what are you going to discuss in a secluded place? Explain yourself! She finished menacingly. Naruto babbled in surprise. I wanted to ask for advice on how to treat girls. Where did you get the book from? Kushina didn't temper her anger at all. Some girl threw it at me. Naruto blurted out the pure truth and fell silent, waiting for a reaction. How can you treat my books like that? Jiraiya asked indignantly. Kushina immediately gave him an irritated look. If I find out that you gave him this book... Naruto, go get dinner! Itachi took the opportunity and tactfully left the room through the window. Naruto slipped out the door at the same time, listening to Kushina switch to Jiraiya. It seemed he was getting it for the book now, and Minato's name was also mentioned. What, did Jiraiya really give Minato such books? Naruto couldn't help himself, and, imagining what the expressions on his father and godfather's faces must be like when Kushina would continue to scold them both if she found something else, burst out laughing and literally flew down the stairs. Kushina's indignant cry was heard from above. Then why is your autograph here and the book is addressed to Minato? His father was no longer in the kitchen, but his younger brother was there, washing up the dishes after dinner, and Naruto's cold portion was on the table. Hearing his mother's scream and his brother's laughter, Kazuo turned around and looked at Naruto, who had flown into the kitchen, with a suspicious look. Did you steal the book from your dad's secret place where he hides all of Jiraiya's gifts again? Yeah, Naruto couldn't think of anything better than to confirm someone else's accusation. Since mom was shouting something about an autograph, then it was clearly like that. Yeah, and then he planted the book on some girl, and the day before yesterday the book came back, but to you. Kurama chuckled, noticeably relaxed after they moved further away from Jiraiya. Listen, I don't know where this hiding place is. Naruto noted, sitting down on a chair and moving the plate closer to himself. Just don't think about looking for him while there's someone at home, Kurama warned him. You're offending me, but I'm not stupid. When Naruto finished eating, Kazuo had already finished washing the dishes and moved to the table, put his hands on it, rested his chin on them and directed an expectant gaze at his older brother. Where have you been all day today? He asked. I was training, Naruto replied, trying to figure out how to stuff all the food left on his plate into his mouth at once. You promised that the next time you were going to train, you would take me with you. Kazuo's voice clearly showed a note of resentment. You lied to me again, didn't you? Or did you forget again? Of course not. Naruto's eyes widened, feverishly trying to find some words so as not to upset his brother even more. Frankly, he was surprised by this turn of events. I wanted to take you tomorrow after classes at the academy. I've been studying history with Sakura all week, so I forgot, sorry. Studying history? Kazuo asked again, surprised to the point of forgetting his resentment and straightening up in his chair. Why? Well, there are 6 months left until graduation, and I don't want to sit at the academy for an extra year if they don't let me take the exams, Naruto explained. I want to go on missions. I want to become a real shinobi. Brother, are you by any chance sick? Kazuo immediately asked worriedly, doubts splashing in his eyes. Kurama maintained a meaningful silence, apparently deciding this time to let Naruto dig his own grave without outside comments. No, of course not, I'm an Uzumaki. And that's why I can't stay back a year. Naruto tried to justify himself. Judging by the fact that his brother immediately relaxed, he succeeded. Apparently, the local Naruto also occasionally came up with strange ideas, sincerely trying to implement them, and he justified himself with the same phrase all the time. You won't last more than a week, you tried that the year before last. Kazuo smiled unexpectedly. Let's make a bet, Naruto immediately suggested, deeply offended by this. For what? Kazuo was not at all confused, clearly trying to think of something he could ask his brother for. What do you want? Naruto waved him off. He was clearly very hurt by the fact that he couldn't do something. I'll train with you for a month if you fail at least one test in a month, he finally came up with. Asking for more was fraught with danger. Naruto might change his mind about arguing with him. I won't get below 50 on the tests, otherwise Itachi won't teach me a cool jutsu. Naruto smiled widely. I wanted to ask him for shadow cloning after I saw it, and he went and set me a condition, to write tests by the end of the year with no less than 50 points. So I'll endure it. That's not fair, Kazuo exclaimed, almost choking on air from indignation. You offered me a bet, knowing that you would definitely win. It's not true, I didn't even think about it. I don't think you thought at all. Kurama finally spoke up. You'll wash your own dishes, Kazuo said sullenly, getting up from the table. You've laughed at me again, he said already at the door and rushed up the stairs. Half a minute later, the door slammed loudly upstairs. Congratulations, Naruto, you managed to argue with your brother. I didn't mean to. It just happened somehow, Naruto said, upset. It's okay, I'll fix it tomorrow. Do you think it will work? Kurama asked skeptically. I'll show him something. Don't you dare show your sexy jutsu to a child. Why? Naruto didn't understand. This idea seemed like the perfect way out of the situation to him. It's so cool. Konohamaru liked it then. It works on everyone. I'm proud of it. I'll show Kazuo a weapon of mass destruction, and he'll forgive me. Naruto! Kurama almost howled in despair. You'll get it from your mother when she finds out. So what? Naruto waved him off. At least I'll make peace with my brother. The next morning Naruto reluctantly went to the academy. To be honest, he would have much rather spent the whole day in Jiraiya's company, but he had gone somewhere in the evening, obviously deciding to hide from the enraged Kushina, so all that was left was to hope that he wouldn't change his mind about the hot springs and would come for him in the evening. Well, in the worst case, he could look for Jiraiya in the springs himself. Fortunately, Naruto knew perfectly well in which part of the hot springs he should look for him, closer to the hole in the fence that inspired him to write a novel. In principle, Naruto could have skipped the academy, but he and Kurama decided that while they hadn't forgotten, They should drag a couple of notebooks and pens there, grab all the textbooks they had and dump them in the desk as well, so as not to have to look for them later and not rush to drag them to the academy when they had to return the books they had borrowed to the library. They wouldn't have to go there at all. Any teacher could pick up books from the desk. Naruto almost never attended the book return personally. He got a slap on the neck for lost books later, from Iruka-sensei, and started looking for them in the piles of various junk at home. At the academy, it all started when Iruka-sensei announced the test results during the first lesson. Naruto had exactly 60 points. The class was genuinely surprised and everyone, perplexed, turned to Naruto, who threw up his hands and began to blame everything on Sakura, who supposedly studied with him, and then he finished weightily that he had argued with someone and that seemed to have dried up the questions, but the suspicious looks did not. Everyone clearly suspected that he had something in mind and was simply trying to create at least some kind of cover for himself. Kiba enlightened him about this in his inimitable manner before the start of the next lesson, where they repeated the simplest jutsu, focusing on Kawarimi, which Iruka-sensei promised to make them use in a training fight in the next lesson, which was practical. Naruto was surprised to realize that he wasn't as bad with Kawarimi as he was with kunai throwing. He just needed a little practice to get it up to the usual level. That's why Naruto, with a light heart, dodging Ino, who was unhappy that he didn't even thank Sakura for helping him with history, and glad that the classes were on the first floor, ran out the window right after the end of the lesson, to prepare for the practical lesson to warm up a little. And it was on the training field that Naruto was in for a not very pleasant surprise. Might Guy's team was there. Naruto had time to think that he should keep his distance from them, and then he tripped and flew a few more meters, unable to brake properly. He fell right at the feet of Hyuga Niji. He crossed his arms over his chest and, snorting, walked away, pretending that no one else had appeared on the training field. But Rock Lee greeted Naruto, and even helped him up. "What, we know each other here before the Chunin exam?" Naruto was still surprised before Rock Lee answered all his unasked questions with just a couple of sentences. "Hello? And you are one of the future graduates, right? We are here to show you how real training fights in a team should be conducted. I am Rock Lee, and who are you?" "Uzumaki Naruto," he responded automatically. "Thank you." "Oh, that same son of the fourth Hokage, who always gets in everyone's way. And I've never even seen you. I wonder why that is." Rock Lee didn't even think to slow down, continuing to chatter and at the same time shaking Naruto's hand several times quite forcefully, which he grabbed for a handshake without asking. "I didn't lose anything," Niji said. Naruto would have preferred not to meet anyone until the exam, especially considering how difficult Niji's character had been before him. Judging by his reaction to Naruto, he didn't like him too much and clearly wasn't eager to communicate with him. After his friend's remark, Lee immediately switched to him, and Naruto hurried away somewhere far away, like to the mannequins, for example. "Maybe he doesn't like that you here, a mediocre and incompetent according to those around you. Refused your father's surname and the privileges of the Hokage's son, while he, being a genius, received nothing from his clan except a stigma?" Kurama suggested, while Naruto stepped aside, trying not to listen to Rock Lee's words about how useful it is to know everyone around you and have good relations with them. And in general, Might Guy, according to Rock Lee, often repeated to them that you can't quarrel with people over trifles, and Niji doesn't want to listen to him. Judging by the expression on Niji's face, he didn't consider the reason why he didn't like Naruto a trifle, so Rock Lee's admonitions fell on deaf ears. Tenten checked her scrolls with weapons and did not participate in the conversation, and it was unlikely that she was going to interfere. As far as Naruto remembered from his world, such squabbles were a frequent occurrence for them and she never interfered in them, preferring to maintain good relations with both comrades at once and not take anyone's side, because she understood perfectly well that she would not be able to convince them both and they would definitely not listen to her, even if she tried. In matters of relationships with others, they were both too stubborn. Maybe. Naruto agreed with Kurama's assumption, glancing sideways at Might Guy's team. After thinking for a few more seconds, he decided that the best option was to turn his back on them and start warming up, just like Niji, pretending that he wasn't there. It was dangerous to prove anything to him now, because Naruto had barely figured out the current situation and could very well say something about what was in his world, but was not in this one. Hyuga Niji was a genius, and saying something provocative about another world in his society would be too stupid a way to find a shortcut to prison. Well, finally you started thinking about safety, and not just telling me that I need to be more careful. Kurama praised his decision when Naruto hurried to outline to him the further plan of action for the practical lesson, the main point of which was to stay as far away from Niji as possible and contact him as little as possible, so as not to accidentally break down and not say too much, which, in theory, should not have been so difficult, given Niji's own reaction and the two clearly demonstrated unwillingness to talk to Naruto. By the time the lesson started, Naruto had managed to warm up properly and sincerely hoped that thanks to this he would at least not be the weakest in the group. The realization that he was again a weakling who could do nothing was very unnerving to him, and the inability to restore all his skills in a couple of weeks was even more annoying. Although he understood that the sudden progress in training would already be very strange for those around him, Naruto understood that he would be very lucky if they wrote it off as the fact that he had simply come to his senses. Maybe I should come up with some grandiose mischief and commit it in a couple of weeks, so that everyone will decide that my interest in learning was a distraction. Naruto casually asked, taking his place among the other students. Isn't the excuse of arguing with Itachi enough for you? Kurama snorted at him, happy with the prudence he had shown. The joy was short-lived, but still pleasant. Well, just in case. They've already started. Kurama hurried to distract him from his dangerous thoughts, and Naruto immediately turned all his attention to the people around him, intending to watch the rest of the guys. Lost in thought, he missed all of Tenten's explanations, who was apparently showing something and was now waiting for something from them. Fortunately, Naruto avoided the fate of repeating her actions. First, Sakura volunteered before Tenten had time to choose a victim. Half of the lesson continued in approximately the same spirit. Might Guy's team showed something, they repeated it, after which they finished everything with a spectacular battle against each other in turn. Naruto thought with horror that he would have to try very hard to do Niji in the exam without Kurama's chakra. It would be a big mistake to demonstrate him there. But in order to demonstrate something there, he still needed to get there. And for this, he would have to try very hard, given his current level. After the battle of Might Guy's team, Iruka-sensei suggested that the guys fight among themselves, after which he promised to let them go home. Naruto had the chance to fight last. Actually, there was hardly anything surprising about it. He was paired with Kiba, and after the fight, in which Naruto lost to him miserably, he decided not to even get up from the ground. He remained lying on it, only his arms and legs spread out in different directions. Kiba needed some 20 seconds to beat him. Naruto simply did not have time to react. And it was damn offensive. The boys dispersed almost immediately, some of them, like Hinata and Ino, casting sympathetic glances at him, while Naruto tried hard to pretend he didn't care, lying on the ground. He even ignored Iruka-sensei. He felt so bad after losing to Kiba. The world doesn't end here. Kurama tried to shake him. I was just thinking. It's comfortable to lie still. Naruto hurried to come out of his stupor, at least mentally. It was quiet around. Only the leaves of the trees rustled faintly in the wind. The clouds glided lazily across the sky. There was no one else left on the playground. Shikamaru had completely disappeared somewhere else in the middle of the lesson. Well, Kurama said, but he didn't dare go into details. Sakura returned about 10 minutes later. Apparently that's how long it took her to get rid of Ino. And here I hate Kiba too, just like in my world. Naruto hissed irritably as soon as she leaned over him. You did it in your world, so you'll do it in this one too. Sakura made a not very good attempt to calm him down. Naruto gave her a doubtful look, then rolled his eyes and grinned. Of course I will. But that doesn't change the fact that I lost to him in just 20 seconds. And in our world I saw all his attacks. I had the advantage. And it didn't help me. It irritates me. Itachi saw it too. And I told him that I was an Umbu captain. Who will believe my words after this? Oh, so that's it. Sakura waved her hand at him. Well then, yes, you're a loser. Well, thank you. Naruto sat up abruptly on the ground, getting ready to get up. I can only tell you that you will just need time to restore your previous abilities. Alas, as a doctor I am of no use now. I tried yesterday, nothing works. I also need training. And this is not surprising. After all, here we are children again. Naruto just opened his mouth to say something back to her, when suddenly someone very close by whistled in surprise and barely audibly. "Who's there?" Naruto asked sullenly, jumping up to his feet and showing with his whole appearance that he wouldn't let the troublemaker go without a fight. The branches crackled loudly and some strange snorting was heard. Sakura hurried to take a few steps away from Naruto to take a more comfortable position in her opinion. "What world are you talking about?" Shikamaru, crawling out of the bushes, became wary. "I just dozed off during Sasuke's sparring." Sasuke was first. Naruto couldn't help but slap his forehead with all his might. At the same moment, Sakura slapped him on the back of the head. His head started ringing. "That's what I mean. I was a cool censor, but now? And now I didn't notice Shikamaru right under my nose." "Naruto!" Sakura howled. "You are not Naruto and Sakura," Shikamaru concluded. "Then who are you?" "We're Naruto and Sakura, he's just not all there." Haruno snorted, then turned towards Naruto and pounced on him again, hissing softly like an angry cat. "Keep your mouth shut, Naruto!" "So are you going to tell me what's going on here or not?" "He'll be too lazy to follow," Naruto thought to himself. "And Shikamaru could be very useful. At least I'll stop getting into stupid situations. And anyway, we were friends in my world. If I decide to tell him, will you talk me out of it?" "It's useless." Kurama shook his head. "Besides, he's the source of the information. The main thing is to approach it from the right side. And you promise to take my word for it?" Naruto decided. Sakura next to him measured him with such an irritated look that it could have killed an entire army. "Naruto, this is a bad idea. You promised that you wouldn't tell anyone about our game in parallel worlds. The others will laugh if they find out. We are not 5 years old anymore." Sakura made another attempt to get out of this situation. She even tried to add as much panic and resentment to her voice as she could. "If I can't verify it, then I'll have to believe it, right?" Shikamaru concluded, scratching his head. Sakura's behavior suggested that this was a bad prank, but he had heard their entire conversation, and their reactions to his appearance spoke for themselves. Something was wrong here. And it seemed that they had disagreed. Sakura wanted to get rid of him, while Naruto, judging by the expression on his face, was determined to grab him and throw him to the ground if necessary. In any case, he wouldn't be able to just leave like that. He had to behave more sensibly, and keep quiet so as not to give himself away. It was a pity that he had only thought about it now. Shikamaru preferred to decide for himself where he should be at that moment. He didn't want to lie on the ground at Naruto's mercy, and he wanted to get bruises from him even less. That is, he essentially had no choice, because going home now was clearly not worth it. It would be fraught with the risk of showing up there when his mother was not in the best mood in the morning. He could stay and listen to while away the time. Besides, he could always pretend that he really didn't know anything. "Will you swear not to tell anyone?" At these words of Naruto, Sakura let out some kind of incomprehensible, half-indignant, half-doomed sigh, muttering something suspiciously similar to, "I'm not participating in this. It would be too tiring." Shikamaru shrugged, walking up to Naruto and sitting down opposite him. "So I won't tell you." "Great then." Naruto rubbed his palms together and plopped down on the ground, crossing his legs. "Sit down and listen. What's going on here?" "I was gone for 15 minutes. A dark voice came from behind Naruto. "And you're back again." "I didn't do it on purpose, Itachi-san," Naruto quickly denied, jumping up and running to the side, making a feeble attempt to hide behind Sakura, who immediately stepped to the side with the most gloomy expression on her face, showing with her whole appearance that she had nothing to do with it. "It just happened that way." "Bad excuse. He can help us. He's a good strategist. A great one, even. And he was my friend. I don't think anything will stop him from becoming one here." And Itachi couldn't help but let out a resigned sigh. "You have disgusting ways of recruiting supporters." He could not describe this absurd situation in any other way. "Well, let him be on our side. Just don't use the Sharingan on him. He's really, really cool. Then he has no choice. He'll just have to be on our side," Sakura concluded. "And maybe you could explain something to me?" Shikamaru finally spoke up again. To put it mildly, he didn't like what was happening around him, and the missed idea of running away from the very beginning began to seem simply magnificent to him. "Oh yeah? Sakura, please tell me." Naruto perked up, remembering that he actually had another important matter today. A very urgent matter. "And I still need to find Jiraiya." "Jiraiya?" Sakura frowned, clearly sensing the catch and becoming even more gloomy than before. "I'll tell you later." Naruto didn't waste any time and, accompanied by 3 gloomy glances, rushed away. "I'm counting on you, Sakura-chan." He waved his hand goodbye, disappearing around the corner. The ear that the hot spring manager was holding him by was burning. Naruto made several futile attempts to break free, but it was unexpectedly difficult to resist the frail-looking granny, so he, like in the case of Ebisu, desperately tried to come up with an escape plan, ignoring all her moralizing and trying to twitch as little as possible in order to lull her vigilance, seize the moment, and get out of here. This was already the 3rd hot spring in a row in which Jiraiya was not there. Actually, the time had barely passed 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was not surprising that he was not here. But Naruto did not have any more ideas where to look for him, and he really did not want to ask Itachi. Especially after that disgrace at the academy. And now he was caught in such a stupid way. The situation was saved by the unexpected appearance of Jiraiya, whom Naruto had been looking for so long. "How do you manage to find trouble so easily?" he wondered after they had finally gotten rid of the manager and left the hot springs. "It just happens somehow." Naruto shrugged. Jiraiya sighed in dismay. "Where do you want to go for a bite to eat?" he asked. "To Ichiraku ramen." Naruto immediately chose. "It's very tasty there." "Everything is clear with you," Jiraiya noted in an incomprehensible tone. "Itachi is not called yet." "Itachi-san, come with us." Not listening to Jiraiya's further words, Naruto called. Itachi, who had appeared behind him, showed with all his appearance that he didn't like this idea too much. "Well, he is my observer. Everyone knows that we communicate well," Naruto tried to justify himself, feeling uncomfortable under 2 accusing glances. "Okay," Jiraiya agreed. "After dinner you go home, and we'll go somewhere else to talk. Just tell me that you just think I'm too young to spy on girls." Naruto frowned. Itachi's expression became even more gloomy. He clearly wasn't going to spy on anyone or go anywhere with anyone. Especially not with Jiraiya. The Sannin just laughed at this offended sniffle and ruffled Naruto's hair. "You want something from me, right?" Jiraiya asked as they settled comfortably into Ichiraku ramen and waited for their order. Naruto's face was all too impatient. "You can help me, right?" Naruto began from afar. "Next time, start your request with the legend of the Sage of the 6 Paths, to be sure to talk him to death." Kurama snorted. "Let's say I can do something." Jiraiya responded evasively. "Well, for example, to somehow protect Kurama so that we don't accidentally get caught." "If you act carefully, you won't get caught. In the village, usually few people know who exactly the Jinchuriki is, and few can understand it. What if someone can do it?" Naruto couldn't calm down. "You have Sharingan and Genjutsu. Just say that you just don't want to do anything because you're lazy," Naruto frowned. "Then find me Orochimaru. He'll do it." "His hideouts are very difficult to find," Jiraiya began, but was interrupted by Naruto under Itachi's disapproving gaze. "I'll draw you a map of 2 hideouts that I know about. I hope that Orochimaru came here with me and knows why this happened. So please don't try to kill him right away. He's improved a bit, and even fought on our side in the war." Well, or rather, Tsunade was collecting the pieces. Jiraiya was almost speechless at the news, but managed to control himself in time. "Okay," he agreed. "I'll try, but I'm not promising you anything. If you don't find him, he should be here in about a year and a half anyway. Maybe sooner, if he did end up here with me, and if he figures out how to convince the village of his loyalty. Or he could just kidnap me, that would be just like him. We can just find him sooner. There will be fewer problems. It would be weird if someone realized that I knew him, because in the current situation it's simply impossible, but if you bring him, I'll be able to communicate with him without any obstacles." Jiraiya and Itachi gave him doubtful looks. "Kurama and I were discussing this last night." Naruto was offended. "I've never thought for so long." "I see." Jiraiya sighed. Okay. But I need a map as detailed as possible. Of course. Sakura and I will do it. Naruto was delighted and forgot himself for a second. Oh. Tell me, Naruto. Jiraiya began in a tone that was very close to threatening. How many people know that you're not really you? 4. Naruto admitted frankly. Itachi looked up at the ceiling, unable to silently tolerate such a phenomenal ability to get caught. Who is the 4th? Shikamaru. Naruto admitted dejectedly. Kurama couldn't stop laughing and thrashing his tails on the floor. Their order had just arrived and the conversation had stopped for a moment. So Sakura also ended up here with you? Jiraiya continued to inquire about the situation as soon as the man had returned to his place. Yes, Naruto confirmed, pulling the plate towards himself without any enthusiasm. Excellent. Let Shikamaru figure out how to stop you from opening up to others. It's a pity we can't just take away your voice. At least it's not a seal on the tongue, like in the root. Naruto sighed with relief, glad that in some ways his thoughts coincided with his godfather. I myself wanted to ask Shikamaru for help. Kushina will notice, so no. That means he already thought about it. Naruto shuddered mentally. Now finish eating and go home, and Itachi and I still need to talk about something. Just no nonsense. He's had enough nonsense for today. Itachi finally spoke up, clearly still not in the best